Gopal Singh and his group here. It's like there is this character in this little novel written by somebody called Forrest Carter. It's called The Education of Little Tree. The Education of Little Tree. Little Tree is a boy. Profession that we want for ourselves. What kind of life we want for ourselves. Is it just a day job for us, or is it something more than that? So this is something which we might want to ask ourselves. I think higher education particularly is a very limited enterprise in a country like ours. About a quarter of the young people who are of the age group of 17 to 23 ever get to go to any kind of institutions of higher education. And to institutions like this, like the one where we work, are even a much more minuscule proportion of students of that age group ever to come to be with us. So, what is the kind of progressive social role that we are discharging by engaging with these kids? Who are these kids? Why are they here? This also is actually bothering me a great deal these days, particularly because I feel that the Indian middle class, upper middle class, but particularly the upwardly mobile upper middle class, particularly, have already seceded, it looks like, from this country. If at all there has to be somebody to be accused of being a secessionist, I would say it is the Indian middle class, which is a secessionist in this country, because they have already mentally seceded. And that's often the reason why we overhear conversations between parents and children which amount to something like this, that if you don't work hard at school, son, you'll be stuck in this country. So ultimate aim is not to get stuck in this country. And what are we doing? We are essentially facilitating this process of fleeing, finding new moorings, finding new pastures, go to the promised land, California. I was telling this to Norman this morning that all our kids are trying to come to his part of the world. That's the ultimate aim. So, I mean, this is of course a kind of a dismal picture, but I'm putting it starkly in front of you, my colleagues, because I think a process of introspection has to begin with us. I think it's important for us to ask ourselves this question: what do we want to do? What exactly is the organic link between us in this campus, which is walled, and the outside world, the Rao Daba and the villages beyond it? What's the relationship? What's the organic relationship? We write as a credo from here to the world. What is world? Is world California? Or is it world also the rural India? So what are we preparing our young people for? What is it that we are trying to do here? So this introspection I would urge you, all of us, to engage in. Sorry for this particular somewhat grim way of welcoming all of you to the Teachers' Day, but it's my pleasure to welcome Dr. Kiran Karnik and request him to come here myself. Yeah, the PCs can introduce. We are looking forward to listening to you and also to have a conversation if possible to you. And after that, we'll have Don Norman would also be coming and having a brief 15 minutes intervention, and then we will listen to Dr. Madan Gopal Singh and his group render Sufi music of Bulle Shah and Rumi and so on. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir, for those insightful words. Next, we have the privilege of hearing from a truly renowned figure in the field of education and communication, Dr. Kiran Karnik. Dr. Kiran Karnik is a prominent Indian administrator, chiefly known for his work in the broadcasting and outsourcing industries. Please give a warm welcome to Dr. Kiran Karnik.
Good afternoon. First of all, I want to say a word of gratitude to the university, to Professor Shyam Menon, and to all of you for having me here, and to listen to some very random thoughts on occasion of Teachers' Day. So it's not quite Teachers' Day as Shyam just said, but a happy Teachers' Day to all of you in any case. I'm going to talk today of something which makes me comfortable to speak about. I'm going to speak about the future. It makes me comfortable because the future is something you can speak about quite safely because you're not there yet. And by the time you find out I'm wrong, I won't be around here, at least not here. So quite safe on that count. The one thing that used to be said about the future, and I must say I wrote about this some time back, is that you could say that the only thing certain about the future is that it will come. I said even now, in the world, state of the world today, even that is uncertain. You could have a nuclear catastrophe, you could have an asteroid descending on us, or we could just kill each other. All options are open. And we can no longer say that the future is definitely going to come. But let's assume it does. And from that point of view, I want to spend a few moments looking at teachers that are teaching, looking at jobs and skills that we require, and the institutions of the future. It's completely speculative, and the thought of what I share with you is not based on any hard data, just based on experiences and some Bible thinking. But what I thought I would do today is share those thoughts to try and leave something with you to mull over, and hopefully to disagree with, and come to your own conclusions about what you think is appropriate in each of these areas, which are of importance undoubtedly. The role of the teacher, what kind of teaching, what jobs and therefore what skills, and what are institutions like this going to be in future? What will they be doing? So that's something that I thought I'd share today with you briefly, and I hope we have some time for interaction. So I'll try and make my comments brief, so they're not logically linked together because I could do that and spend a lot of time, but I want to just make a few sharp points about what I see as the future. I must make one comment on the deeply philosophical and thought-provoking talk that Professor Menon just gave. I've known Shyam for decades, and have the greatest of respect for his ability to think. So I was listening with great concentration and intent. And one thing he said struck me, and I think we may be on a common chord on that. Many years ago I had written a piece called Secession of the Successful. At that time, it was based in my experience of Delhi, where I lived in one of the small Delhi colonies, where we had our own security. We had a tube mill, and we had many amenities which were aimed to reduce our dependence on the world outside. And then some years ago, I came to Gurgaon. I don't know how many of you are familiar with or live in Gurgaon. This is a world apart. I live in one of those, I must say, cocoons, the condominiums, where we have absolutely everything. And during COVID, while one missed just the thought of going out, within the condominium, we had things where we did not have to go out. So it was truly, as Shyam just said, a sort of secession, that you're no longer part of the country, you're no longer part of the wider community or ecosystem. You neither depend on it, they may or may not depend on you, and there's nothing you need to do there. People used to go out for work at least, to go to offices or to factories, going and supervising there or doing something. Now you no longer need to do that, you work from home. So in that sense, the ability to secede is very strong. And why do I talk of this not as a point of socio-political importance, but from the point of view of what kinds of impact this may have on the future as we look ahead to what the roles are of the teacher, teaching, students and institutions. I will not talk too much about the teacher-student relationship, though I might mention that in passing, and Shyam just touched on some aspects of it. I want to touch on teaching and teachers first. So a few comments on teaching and how do I see that evolving over time, based on what is happening, based on some of the aspects I mentioned, based on the technological changes that are sweeping the world at an ever faster rate, and what is being adapted and what is being done out of that. So let me just pick a few points from that. First is that with all that we are seeing in the world of technology, particularly things like artificial intelligence, and this started some time back, information is no longer of any value in terms of imparting. It's available there. You can go to the net and download whatever you want. And you could do this many years ago. So information, conveying information as a teaching method is no longer of any importance. Information is important, but there are so many ways of getting it that is not expected that you do it in the teaching. You might do it incidentally, but that's not the core part. Unlike old days when giving information was critical. Second, that even knowledge has become less and less something which needs to be imparted. Again, like information, knowledge is obviously absolutely essential, but it's not something that necessarily has to come from the teacher. It can come again from a machine. And we see enough instances on that in terms of whatever we want to pick out. What do you want information about? You can get it. What do you want any knowledge about, which is the next stage beyond that? You can get that also very easily. You can get it by searching, you can get it now by just speaking. You go to one of the apps which are there, which are very simple. You don't even have to go to ChatGPT 3.5 or 4, you can go to simpler versions and get whatever information you want and whatever knowledge you want. But what remains above that, and I'm classifying this very broadly, is what you might call the next stage of wisdom. Wisdom is not something you can get out of a machine or on the net yet. Who knows, a few decades from now you may get that, but today it doesn't. And that's something that is imparted in interactions, and that's something that's expected and can be very, very usefully done only by a teacher. Call the teacher by whatever name you want. Guru, Shishya was mentioned. One of the roles of the Guru in old days was just that. Not just to convey information, which the Guru did, partly by rote learning, partly by other means, conveying knowledge, certainly, but implicitly conveying wisdom. And that's a role that's ongoing and become even more critical as the first two can be taken over by somebody else. And I think that's going to be something to really think about. And how to do it, I will not dwell on, but this is one role which the teacher must do, has to do, and cannot abdicate. You have young students who have overloads of information, who can pick up knowledge wherever they want, but unfortunately the wisdom is not something they can pick up from anywhere. It has to come from somebody whom they respect, who has that wisdom, who's earned the right to be able to convey it. Similar manner, problem solving, which used to be an important part of teaching, right from school. You pose a problem, either an equation or a question from maybe a literature text, or ask them something from poetry, which is not recitation, ask them a question about that, to solve, in some sense, a problem, in quotes. Problem solving is no longer going to be the forte in future. Because problem solving can be again done, or relegated, you might say, delegated to a machine. It can solve problems. And starting with the simplest examples, you want to solve an equation, machine can do it for you. Faster, quicker, more efficient, with less mistakes in a million tries. So what's the big role in problem solving? So what does that move to? Problem definition. What is the problem? Because very often the problem is not defined properly. We are solving problems that don't exist, or we are posing the problem in a way that is not really the issue. Let me give you one example, and I do this by intention to provoke you. We had a problem saying open defecation. The country is dirty, it's unhygienic, unhealthy, and not good. So what is the solution? Immediate solution is build toilets. Necessary, but is that sufficient? The problem is not solved unless we solve the sociological problem, saying people don't want to go to those places. Why do they go to the fields? They go by choice very often. So So there's a complex socio-psychological problem there, which you got to solve. Now, unless you define the problem either in its totality or define it in these terms, you'll not get to a solution. And I said I use provocatively, some of you may disagree, but you can think of 10 other examples of this type, where the problem is ill-defined, and therefore the solution doesn't really solve what you're trying to do. The other part of teaching of the future, sorry, I'm going to rush a bit now, is that it has to be built more and more around issues rather than disciplines. Now this is a tricky one because disciplinary depth, be it mathematics, physics, biology, is a must. But yet sometimes it narrows you down too early. Possibly the model, which is being not new, it's been explored and tried in many places, is to build a broader base at the undergraduate level. And the best way of building that, and yet building in disciplinary expertise, is to build it around a topic or issue. Say, what is the problem of water in a slum? And then you find that there are problems which are related to delivering water there, the problems related to water purification, the problems related to economics, the problems related to sociology. And many of you may have read about this, I've personally experienced it, that you put a tap in the house and the village women yet want to go to the well or the common tap. Why? Because that's one of their escapes from the home and into interaction, exchange, conversations, even gossip. Simple example, again a very simplistic example, but it tells you something about looking at a problem in its totality. You can't look at just one aspect. And therefore, if there is issue-based education, the students can get exposure to the whole breadth of the holistic issue, holistic way of looking at it, and yet bring in disciplines in depth. If you want water purified, how do you do it? You find 10 different ways. Then you find what's the most economic way of doing it. So you need economics. And you're worried about, is this going to impact health really, or is it just a fad? So you bring in the health aspects. Again, you can think through it, but you can see that making something issue-based brings in dimensions which don't exist if you look at it only from a discipline point of view. And this is going to be one of the needs of teaching in the future, that you have to teach young people growing up to take a look at the problem from all aspects, or more importantly, to understand that there are different perspectives and aspects. They need not be experts, they cannot be. But if the person who's handling, let's say to take this example, handling the delivery of water into the house, he knows what the best way, what pipe size, all the mechanics of it. She must understand that while that's critical and important, there are other perspectives that need to be looked at when you get this problem. The perspectives come from sociology, they come from economics, they come from a whole host of other fields, health, biology, which you need to look at. So I think education in the future is going to move increasingly, and I'm exaggerating to make the point, but increasingly it's going to move towards saying, your class is not on physics today, it's on this issue. And that issue will then have difficulty. How do you teach that? Left you as a challenge, saying, how, as you as a teacher, are you also multidisciplinary, or do you need a team of 4 different teachers? Or do you need you and 4 different windows on the computer to be able to tackle different disciplines? That's, I think, our discussion as to say what you want to do. 2 other quick things. One is critical analysis, obviously. All of us find that this is not there. People have been brought up on rote learning. They're not being taught to think. And while they may think on their own for other things, in the academic setting, they tend not to do that. And most important, since I gave the issue, give you a multifarious or multi-perspective look at issues, one of the most critical things in future is going to be what you might call either design thinking, and I'm glad to see our expert here who's going to talk next and just waiting to hear from him, or you call it system thinking, that you're looking at the totality of things and not each individual bit. Because optimizing each bit doesn't do system optimization, so you've got to look at it in totality. Okay, very quickly on to the other parts. So what's the teacher of the future going to be like? If this is part of the teaching, and you can alter things here and there and put it. The teacher of the future has to be much more of a guide, a mentor, a coach, a sounding board. Because the teacher is no longer conveying information, he's no longer posing and solving problems, but is teaching other skills and other dimensions, which is the critical role of the teacher. Let me quickly move on to two other aspects. I want to make sure I cover them in reasonable time. Jobs. What are going to be the jobs of the future? Well, let me look a bit further ahead, not just this year, next year, year after. Let's say 10, 15 years from now. You yet need specialists who have depth in some fields. But more and more specialist jobs will be taken over by AI, generative AI, and artificial general intelligence, which is one step more. You can be assured of this. Already we are seeing that if I take a field I'm familiar with, which in the area of programming and IT, first it was just simple things, then it became coding, then it became testing. Now in programming, you don't need a programmer. Programmers will be out of jobs. If not now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, it will be taken over. And the same thing I can assure you is going to happen in a whole host of fields, including engineering. It will become such that you pose the issue and you get a solution. You don't need an engineer to be done by the machine. So in light of this possibility, what are the kinds of new jobs that will happen? Some, as I said, will be specialists, much greater depth, a much deeper understanding, something beyond where the machine can take you. There will be need for those yet. You need completely new skills with new designations. One which many of you, maybe all of you are already doing, is prompts for Gen AI. So you have a whole new breed of people called prompters. Because writing that prompt, what you write is important. So these are not prompters, as some of you may be from the theatre world. They are not prompters from behind the stage telling you this is the line, in case you've forgotten your lines. They are prompters who write prompts for the machine. This is going to be one new breed. Another one is going to be innovators. These exist now, but this is going to become a discipline. Because with competition, with machines everywhere, you'll probably have a stalemate. Because if you're competing, if you're in a company and you're competing with somebody else, what you do, your competitor will do. Because the same machine, the same program is probably, feeding both of you. So what is going to be your differentiator? The differentiator will have to be innovation. How is your product different? How is your service different? What are you doing that's different? And I'm talking of companies, but look at it from the university point of view. How are you different from 10 other universities? What are you doing that is different? Is your product, your graduate, the same as the others? Which is good, it's not bad, you may be as good as the best, but it doesn't differentiate you. What will be the killer, so to say, is the differentiation in a superior to your product or service, which means innovation. So you need innovators who think in that way. They are not routine people who do a job efficiently and successfully, but people who think out of box. So there will be a whole new breed of people called innovators, and you need to train for them. Now what kind of training? How do you impart that? For another day. But it's possible to look at creativity and innovation as being one. As I said, engineers will get largely replaced. Very few jobs left, only at a very deep level. But you have a new breed called imagineers. People imagine. See, that's yet, at the moment, again, I stress, beyond the capability of machines. Can you imagine something completely new? And so you will need people again who are imagineers, who stretch their imagination and imagine completely new things, even beyond innovation. In a way, it's one step beyond, or like innovation, but beyond. So innovator will innovate new products, and imagineer will see something new, a completely new kind of product, not a better product, not one that's more efficient or one that looks better, but a completely new kind of product. The dial phone to the cell phone, the horse to the car, that is imagination. Not a faster horse, not a better horse, not a bigger horse, not one that can carry more people or more load, but a car. That is imagination. Somebody imagines something, a motorized vehicle. Somebody imagines a vehicle that can be very heavy, take people, but can fly in the air. That is imagination. So you need people who imagineers. What's the role of the teacher in this? Left you. You want to think about it. How do you create these new skills, which will be what the world will need, if not 2030s, in the 2040s. I see many of you are at the age and stage where you're training people today, educating people today, who will be those who work in the 2030s and 2040s. What are you going to equip them with? I think these are the kinds of things that you might have to equip them with to be able to take up these kinds of jobs of prompters, of innovators, of inventors, of imagineers. Finally, you will need people lawyers. You have all these different people. And again, I talk to the issue and the topic. You need somebody who pulls it together. Who are they? You need people like that. You need people whom I may call systemists, like biologists or physicists. You need systemists. People who think total system, who don't have necessary depth in one field, but to look at the totality. In a crude way, I like to think of it as the GP of old. If any of you have ever gone to a GP, many of you are young, the general practitioner was the family doctor. He looked at you as a person, as a whole body. Today if you go, he says your left arm paining, your right arm. If your right arm is paining, go to that doctor. If your left arm is paining, go to this doctor. Specialization, which has its virtues and has its uses. But you yet need somebody who looks at the totality. And so you need the systemists. Bring all these together and think of the total system. And I think that will be another key element that will be there in the jobs. So what are the skills that these jobs will then require? How you train, I will leave it to you. But the kinds of skills that will have to be there are future-proof skills. Things change so fast that whatever you skill you impart has to be future-proof. And so the first requirement there is learning how to learn. You know, today you teach, people learn. You have to teach people how to learn. So learning how to learn is going to be the biggest skill in the future. Because today you're doing something, you'll be obsolete tomorrow. Unless you learn that new thing. So continuously being able to learn is one of the things. It used to be called learning to be or lifelong learning in the old days. But how do you do the lifelong learning? That is something that a university has to equip young people with. How do you make sure that they continue learning? What are those things, skills, abilities, attitudes that you need to impart to be able to do that? You need to be able to, work with different disciplines for sure. I mentioned that. You need to be able to work with different cultural backgrounds, which is already happening. And we talk about it even nowadays. Most of the services, there is something being done about diversity, different kinds of people. 15 years back, diversity means employing some women in your company, or in your university, or in your organization. Today it means a lot more. It means employing a whole range of diversities, including just not just the known ones, like gender or physical abilities, but even psychological abilities, the psychographic aspect. Getting people who have very different thought processes together. And I think that ability to deal with this whole range of people is a critical skill which has to come from an early age and something which teaching institutions must equip people to do. The ability to work with this. Just as we need to give them, impart to them the ability to build teams. Team building and team working are to be critical skills. These are elements of what broadly in earlier days we used to call soft skills. But this is in some sense beyond the traditional soft skills of communication, of teamwork, of interaction. And I think you need to look at those there. Finally, a quick word of the institutions of the future. So what are institutions going to look like? What is the university going to look like? How big will it be? What kind of classes will you have? One model, and I'm sure many of you have seen this, some of you may have actually taught there, is the earlier model. It's going on there too now. In the US, where for the undergraduate, we had a class of 500 sitting in an auditorium and the teachers lecturing. Obviously that model is wrong because it's sell by date. So instead of sitting there, you can sit in your room, in the hostel or at home, and just see that online or see something else online. Fast forward where you want, which is what most young people do today to lectures. You fast forward and then listen to the key bits of it and that's it. So that's no longer the model. Today the model is smaller classrooms, a little more interaction. We're somewhere in between. During COVID, all of us did a lot of online teaching. And both students and teachers got a little more comfortable with it. It has its drawbacks, but it has its plus points too. From the student point of view, I said fast forward. This is not of interest to me. I know this, or this one let me skip through a little faster. So you put it on 2x speed, and you listen to the whole lecture faster. You don't have to spend as much time as in the classroom. From the teacher's point of view, you can draw on a lot more resource material, put across a lot more, maybe animate, slow motion, whatever. So there are advantages, but there are lots of disadvantages. Primary amongst them is interaction. I'll come to that in a moment. The second part is going to be the physical infrastructure will have to be much more experiential. I talked about taking a topic and getting an immersive dip into that from different perspectives. Experiential laboratories will be critical to give youngsters an experience of what things would be like when they go out to work, or what kind of work they're doing, or where they are. And today, with all the technology, you can do this exceedingly well. You can use AR, VR, virtual reality, augmented reality. You can use simulations. You can use slow motion. A whole host of them where the student is actually immersed into that. You can really completely simulate the situation to give them the experience that you feel they need to have. So I said experiential labs are going to be a need of the day. What kind of discipline, topic, what kind of thing you want to take them through, but you're going to have a whole host of them. Instead of just the physics lab and the biology lab or the engineering machines, you have to have much more experiential laboratories in future. Second, because a lot of the learning will take place online, as I kept mentioning, the role of the teacher and the student-teacher interaction will have to move to a completely different dimension. It's more tutoring, mentoring, as I said. And therefore, by definition, it means smaller classes, smaller classrooms. Do you need a classroom of 150 at all, or even 100? I don't know. But certainly you would need smaller rooms of 15, 20, where you can sit around and talk with them. What does it mean in terms of teacher-student ratio? How much more? How much of this can be done when you're not doing the lecturing, which you're spending a lot of time on now, where the students are told to go, watch this online. In the old days, you say, read this and come. Now you say, watch this and come. So the class is devoted completely to discussion, to understanding different perspectives, to going back and forth. The students will use the sounding board saying, I had this idea because I read this. Does it work? Why doesn't this happen? So completely different model, but based very clearly on having far more interaction, which means fewer students, which means smaller classrooms from the physical point of view. So the institution itself will change even in its physical dimensions. Finally, very critical to much of what I've said and much of what I've left unsaid is dimensions that go beyond the curriculum or that help you to extend the curriculum. And these are things that you get by social interaction, teamwork, doing things together, lessons that you learn from sports, from being able to play a musical instrument, and so on. Which means there's a lot of extracurricular, co-curricular activities, some of which will feed into the curriculum, some of which will feed into academics, but much of it will apparently seem separate from academics. And yet this is a key part of the learning for students to go forth. When we talk about interdisciplinary, it's not just about disciplines of science and social science and humanities. It's also about disciplines that come from other fields: music, art, theatre, reading, sports. And I think these are very important. So the university of the future will have to provide for this. And how do you provide for that? You need enough facilities, but probably you also need a great deal of residential necessities. And this is a point of some discussion, debate, and a great deal of difficulty. See, how many students can you accommodate on campus? What does it mean? You have to be 100% residential. That constrains your size. And if it constrains your size, how do you become truly multidisciplinary? I've been emphasizing the need to be multidisciplinary, to have different disciplines, cheek by jowl, rubbing shoulders all the time. If you're a specialized institution that does just management, and you're outstanding, but you have 600 people who are doing management. Management is a little more diverse because it has different fields, but basically they're in the same broad discipline. You don't have poetry there, you don't have literature there, you don't have drama there, unless students do it on the side. So two things, they're doing it on the side, you need places and facilities for that, but it's not enough. So it would seem the ideal university must be multidisciplinary, and yet you want it to be residential, and yet you want smaller classes for much more interaction. How do you, trade off between these different dimensions? How do you adjust so that you optimize this? I think these are the challenges, and I won't go into them, I just want to leave it for you to think about. If you look at the top 100 universities around the world, you'll see that they're all large as in very large, 25,000, 30,000 plus. Just look at it someday, take the list of top 100 universities. First see age, 80-90% of them are very old, 50, 60, 100 years old. Even more of them are very large. Large number of faculty, large number of disciplines, large number of students. Now, is there learning from that? One way is to say, yes, this is a proven model. We need to be large, we need to be big, we need to be multidisciplinary, we need to have 500 faculty and 30,000 students. The other way to look at it is say, hey, this is the past. The past is gone. The future is very different. This is all gone, dead. We need a completely different kind of institution, which does things very differently. Much smaller, more cohesive, multidisciplinary, yes, but completely residential, with co-curricular, extracurricular, being interlinked into the whole academic curriculum, which means again, different facilities and on campus. Faculty needs to be on campus because you want a lot of interaction between faculty and students. Is it good for faculty or bad? Many faculty may prefer to cut off after work time. I don't interact with the same people. I don't want to talk of the same things. So where does this leave you? I think it leaves you only with a lot of question marks. It leaves me at least, and I hope you also, with a lot of excitement about the future. New things happening, new technologies, new possibilities, completely new ways of thinking, and a completely different way of looking both at students, their needs, jobs, teaching, learning, what people go out and do. And I think this may be something we might all think about as we go forward. The excitement of the future and what it promises. Huge amount of challenges, but even bigger opportunities. And I want to leave you on with those thoughts on this Teachers' Day. Wish you all the very best again, and thank you once again for having me here. But if there are any questions, comments, I think I've overdone my time, but if there is time, I'm happy to answer questions or to take comments and listen and learn. Okay.
I was supposed to give a talk here. I don't think I will. I don't need to. You just heard my talk. That was a wonderful talk. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, everything you said is what I would like to say, and in many cases you said it better than I would say it. Well, why don't we stay here and have a conversation? I'll talk for a short time. I'll talk for a short time, and then let's. I'm sorry I missed your beginning, but when I came in, yeah. So I was going to give you a little bit of history of what I'm doing, and you will hear from my history why you are now prepared to listen. So I wrote, we don't have it here, I often wave my book in front of you. I wrote a very popular book on design, the design of everyday things. And I wrote it in 1988, and I updated it in 2013, and I've been teaching for many years from that book. And I don't know how many copies have been sold, it's over 1 million, translated into many languages. And I want to tell you that book is wrong. Now, what's wrong about the book? Nothing. Everything in the book is what I still believe in and what I still teach. What's wrong is what I do not talk about in the book. And what don't I talk about? Well, the simple way of stating it is systems approach. That is, so first of all, let me back off a little bit. I used to be a specialist because I was in a university, and you have no choice. If you want to succeed in a university, especially a research university, you have to publish a lot of specialized papers and publish them in the specialized journals, which nobody else reads, only the other specialties. But that's how you get ahead at a university. It's the reward structure, which is also why people in one discipline do not know what people in another discipline do, because you're busy look, my university is fairly young as universities go. I joined it in 1966 when no one had yet graduated. It was just starting. And it's now considered like one of the very top universities in the world. And it did it by getting big, by having 40,000 students. But it started with Nobel Prize winners. That was very clever. You first hire Nobel Prize winners. Then you hire very senior faculty who want to come to work with the Nobel laureates. And then you hire other faculty who want to come to work with the senior. And then eventually you get to people like me, because I was young at the time. But it was on a very traditional model. You hire the very best people in the area. But there's a really simple way that I've always been the very best in my area. Be the only one. That's a bit clever because you have to choose one that, an area that matters. But nonetheless, it's what leads to these narrow specialties. And I don't know how many times I've told people, I've gone up to someone, a faculty member, and said, here's something we just know about, and there's some people, you really ought to study it. It's right exactly what you're interested in. And you could be the leader in this. And they say, oh yes, you're right, but I still have these 20 experiments to do and 6 papers to write before I can do something like that. And they'll never get to what's important. Anyway, the design of everyday things is wrong because what's not in there. What's not in there is about the world. It's about how we destroy the world in order to get the wonderful materials to make all these wonderful, nice little toys, cell phones, computers, refrigerators, ovens, consumer goods of all sorts, automobiles. And second, we destroy the environment in the smelting of the materials, in the manufacturing, and in the fact that we make them so that you're supposed to buy a new cell phone every 2 or 3 years, a new computer every 3 or 4 years, a new automobile every 5 or 6 years. It's the automobile manufacturers that started this, that they wanted you to keep buying cars, so they make small changes in the cars every year, but every 5 or 6 years they make a major change, and they change the appearance. That's so that other people can tell you're driving an out-of-date cars. And their advertisers tried to make sure that they knew that this was better. And I have seen the manufacturers do things I consider unethical. Back in the early days of computers, I had a computer that didn't do arithmetic. It did arithmetic by software, not by hardware. But you could buy, you could pay extra and get the hardware to do faster arithmetic. And so we finally saved up enough money to buy the faster hardware. And the installer came to install it. And what he did is he walked up to the computer, opened the door, and cut a wire. That is, it was already installed in the computer. It was just disabled. It was all about profit. And so in my book, here's what I did in my book. I looked at the history of the world. I looked out the window of where I lived, and everything I saw was artificial, including the lawn and the grass and the palm trees. They were real, but I live in a steep hill. And so to make it flat had to be artificial. And all the plants were planted, all the palm trees were planted. And the animals are real, but they came to this artificial environment where they're supported. Actually, I did that just a few hours ago, looked out one of the windows here, and I pointed out the same thing here. And I can see a recreational area in the distance. It used to be a swamp, so it's artificial. I could see the city of San Diego, that's clearly artificial. I could see the mountains of Mexico. Now the mountains are real, but the concept of a country is artificial. So the more I looked at that, I said, the world is in trouble. But most of the problems are about people, human behavior. And most of it is artificial, which means it was designed by people over a period of multiple thousands of years, way before the design profession existed. But maybe that means we can change it. But in order to change it, we have to change everything. the economic system, and as you have heard, the educational system. Because we can no longer have only specialists. We absolutely need the special knowledge that has resulted from all the specialists. But we need somebody to put it together. Because when you want to do something real in the world, you require the knowledge of all the specialties, but someone has to be able to put it together. Now, I propose that the design profession was an excellent profession to do this because the designers don't know anything. And I'm telling that as a virtue. In fact, when I teach my students, I'm always afraid to teach them too much. You talked about the need for creativity. If I teach you too much about a subject, you no longer can be creative because you're stuck in all the knowledge you have. So I like people to, I try hard to have my students make creative ideas before they know anything. In fact, that's how I made my reputation, as I would publish I would go into a new field, and the first thing I would do is write a major article about it before I knew the field very well. But I was intelligent. I didn't say, let's publish it. After I've written the article and gotten the ideas out of my system, then I would read all the literature, talk to all the people, and pass it as drafts so that I wouldn't say foolish things, or if other people had said similar things, I could give them credit and so on. But to be creative, you have to have an open mind, not know too much. But to do anything real, you have to know enough about all the disciplines to know which ones you call upon. And it's very important to know what you don't know. It's okay not to know, because everything is done in groups. We have to learn to work in teams. And so the things, it doesn't matter if I don't know everything. What matters is the team should know everything. Different people in the team will have different abilities. Now, I'm going to repeat what you've said just now, but the universities have followed the same lecturing tradition that is present for thousands of years. The world's worst way to learn is through lectures. Lectures are really good at motivating people, at passing on high-level concepts like both of us are doing today, but not a way of learning fundamental facts and so on. There, what you must do, you have to struggle, but just the right amount. First of all, the most important is motivation. You have to really be interested in the topic. And second, it has to be just slightly harder than you can do. If it's too much harder, you'll give up. If it's too easy, you probably won't think, oh yeah, it's so simple. So it has to be just right, because you have to struggle a little bit. And you'll make errors too. But the teaching has to change. We just heard an example. Instead of lectures, why don't I just help you solve the problems? But here's a standard thing I try to tell my professors. They usually don't listen to me. When a normal professor gives homework, and sometimes there are problems in a textbook, the students will say things like, oh, professor, how do you do problem 35? And the professor knows he's going to be asked that, he or she. So the professor studies it at home the night before, so that when you're asked the question, you can, oh, yes, this is it. And so when you ask a professor how to do something, the professor goes, see? And the students say, oh, yes, I see. But when they get home again, they can't repeat it. So they say, I guess I'm no good. What I want is the professor not to have read the problem. And so when you get the problem, you say, oh, let me think. Oh, yeah. And you go to the board and you write it out, and that's not right. And you say, oh, yeah, let me think. Oh, it's not a conservation of energy, it's a conservation of momentum. The point being, I want you to demonstrate to the students that we all make errors, no big deal. The most important thing is to learn what to do, is to step back and say what went wrong. We don't teach that. We also don't teach people to work in groups. The only place you have to work all by yourself is in a university or in the schooling system. And I am strongly in favor of cheating. Now, if you're asked to write a paper, and you don't know what to do, so you ask your friends, and they write good papers, so I copy from my friend, and I copy from Wikipedia, and I ask the AI system to generate stuff, and I put it all together. But because I'm not allowed to do that, I have to lie and say it's mine. What I want is you to do that, but you have to give credit. This is from Tom, this is from Mary, this is from Wikipedia, this is from my AI system, but I edited it afterwards. Because in the world, well, look, I write a lot of books that are very, very successful. There's no new ideas in most of those books. They're taken from other people. And I give credit to those other people. What is new is which ones I selected, how I put them together, and their perspective in which I ask you to view these ideas. And that is originality. But that's what we should train our students to do, is how do you put it together in a way that's informative and useful? Because when you're in a company, I can imagine that your boss comes up to you and says, what is this new generative AI stuff about? I can't follow it. Write me a position paper, not very long, I don't have time to read anything long, make it to say 1 or 2 pages. And if you don't know how to do it, the boss doesn't care, he just wants the result. So you should go and ask people and put it together. And once again, you are credited only if you've done something that actually informs the person, in a small manner, and it is informative. We don't teach that. We don't teach people how to work in groups. I just had an interesting discussion with the Vice Chancellor here. He said, well, that's interesting. You know the PhD thesis? Why don't we say it's allowed to do it as a group work? And your PhD could be a group presentation, because we publish many articles in journals that are done by groups, and the PhD thesis is kind of a beginning article, and most important work is done by groups. It's rare that you get a single person to make a major breakthrough. That happens, especially in the theoretical sciences, but in the practical ones, it takes a large number. In physics today, you can have so many authors on a paper that the list of authors is longer than the paper. Look in Science magazine or Nature magazine for articles by physicists. It's because you need that many different talents, and you have to learn, therefore, actually what the senior people have become. They become managers. And managing a group is difficult, but it's wonderful. One of the jobs I've had in the past is Vice President of Research at Apple. It was called the Applied Technology Group. But many people don't like these positions because you no longer are doing your favorite topic. But I loved it because I'm always curious, and I had 250 really bright people doing all sorts of different work. We had a public health project in India. We had schools all over the world. We developed Wi-Fi. We developed all sorts of other technologies and search and language and all that are in today's computers. I then had to testify to the Federal Communications Commission, a government agency in the United States, in order to get the Wi-Fi ban. So I helped get the very first Wi-Fi ban in the United States. I testified to the same committee a few years later to get the high definition television standards, which meant I had to understand politics. I had to learn about each of the commissioners and what they liked and didn't like. I walked the halls of Congress and talked to the Congress people, but more important, to their staffs, because Congress people are so busy, and first of all, no one could know all of the topics they have to vote on, and second of all, they don't have time to read things, but the good ones have really excellent staff, so you talk to their staffs. But again, how do you do policy? So I'm recommending that we change the educational process, that we allow people to work in groups, actually require them, diverse groups, and not this multidisciplinary stuff where, oh, you have to take a course in anthropology, a course in ethics, and a course in this and that. You don't know why you're taking them. If you have a project, and you're working on a project, then guess what? Oh, yeah, this is the mechanical mechanism. Let's get some mechanical engineers in here to help us. Well, now we need some electronic controllers. Yeah, let's get some electronic engineers. And what about how do we program it? How do people control it? Oh, we need some designers in here. And what I also like to give my students always is they have to do a financial analysis. But I don't call it that. I say, suppose you're a startup and you're going to build this project that we're doing. So I want you to sort of show us the cost and income over the next 5 years. And I give them, since they don't know how to do it, I give them an Excel spreadsheet, but with all of the categories that they have to fill in. Salaries, cost of parts, cost of overhead. Salaries, I have to pay insurance, I have to pay retirement fees, and all sorts of things. And they soon discover that you had a lot of money to pay when you started, and you don't have anything to deliver, so you don't have any income. So where do you get the money from? And then how much do you have to charge? It has to be low enough that people will buy it and high enough that you can pay back all that expense. And it takes several years. And then, well, actually, I remember a case where one group of students said, they're going to fail the course. They came to me all complaining. Why? Well, because we have this wonderful project, but when we try to figure out if we'll ever make money, we never will, because we've talked to all of our possible audience, and they won't pay very much for the project. They love it, but they won't pay very much, and so there's no way we'll ever make money. And so we're going to fail. And I said, no, you get a very high grade, because I wasn't grading them on how successful the product would be. I was grading them on how well they were able to analyze it, and learning that something you're building isn't going to be successful. You better learn that before you spend a lot of money on it. Do you ever teach that in school? No. I could go on and on and on, but I don't think I will, because I think, well, I'll say one more thing. I'm opposed to STEM education. I'm highly trained in S and T and E and M. Yeah, I went to MIT. I have an electrical engineering degree. I went to the University of Pennsylvania. I have an electrical engineering master's degree. And then by accident, I became a psychologist. Actually, I didn't think I was becoming a psychologist, but I wanted to do computer science, and remember how old I am? Well, there wasn't any computer science in those days. And so I heard the new chair of psychology give a talk, and I said, oh, I want to build intelligent machines. Maybe I should study this one. And he was starting a new field called mathematical psychology. He was a physicist. And I went and talked to him, and he said, but you don't know anything about psychology, do you? And I said, yeah. And he said, good. So I became a psychologist. It took me 2 years to get my PhD. My first job was at Harvard. When I got into the job, I was denounced by the world's most famous psychologist. Some of you may know his name, B.F. Skinner, who said I had no business being a psychologist. I thought that was a compliment, because the way I succeeded in psychology was by using my engineering knowledge to really change psychology. And every time I changed fields, which I've done several times, I started a field called information processing psychology. I changed, that became cognitive psychology. Psychology, I decided was too narrow. I was already publishing in the AI journals, consulting for the Xerox Palo Alto Research Center. I wanted to bring in neuroscientists, linguists, sociologists, anthropologists, economists. Thank you. And so I started a department called cognitive science to put it all together. And then I started studying human error, and that led me to applied work, and that led, because I studied aviation accidents. And then that led to the nuclear power accident in the United States. So I was asked on a committee to determine why the operators made errors, and we concluded that the plant was so badly designed that how could they not make an error? And that made me say, oh, I know psychology, I know technology, I didn't know business yet. Let me be a designer. And design is wonderful because the way we do design is, it's a way of thinking. People think design is making things pretty. No, it's a way of thinking. We can approach teaching. We can approach the development of policy by government. In fact, we have to. We can approach engineering problems. All sorts of problems are just really, what the designer knows how to do is bring together these disparate forces to make sure we're solving the right problem. Engineers and business people are really good at solving problems, so they don't step back and say, is this the right problem? We have to solve the right problems. And one of the things is that we optimize for human experience. And so along the way, not only do I want to change education, I want to change the economic system of the world so that we don't optimize for short-term profit, which is how it is today, but for long-term quality of life of people. Now, by the way, everything I'm saying, not only was it said in the previous talk, but it's been said by many famous people all around the world. Many famous economists are criticizing economics. Many famous, teachers are criticizing teaching, etc., etc. How come it's not being done? Well, because it's the culture of the university and the reward system of the university. The reward system rewards publication in high-quality journals, not the generalist who publishes often in books or in magazines, or may publish in a quality journal one article here and one article there and one article there, which means nobody knows the breadth of them. We have to change that too. We have to change a lot of things. But that's all I'm going to say now, because I'd want to change it. First of all, I'd love to have you come back up and we can have a discussion. And second of all, I'd love to have questions from the audience that maybe the two of us can answer. They're debating whether it's permissible. No? Any questions from the audience? By the way, the questions from the audience really works well because I know I'll answer stuff that you care about, but it's awfully hard to get the first question. Once we have the first, the rest follows. Now, someplace we have a microphone that will pass around if you raise your hand. Oh, I think I have it. So I need somebody to pass it around. Questions, anybody? I think I see a hand, but I don't see a... Well, if no one has questions, I don't... Let me make another comment then, as long as I'm here. I want to produce more generalists, not at the expense of specialties, we need those, but I want to do that by having courses that require all the information. But topics like ethics, for example, should not have a course. It's too important to be in a course. It should be fully ingrained inside all the work that you do. So you never have to say, oh, I took a course in that. No, it's automatic. The difficulty in doing this is the professors. Professors were not trained that way themselves, and it's a difficult thing to do. And it's also difficult for universities, again, because the promotion policies don't really make that easy to do. But it's something we should do. And liberal education is a relatively new concept that, as far as I know, has developed in India, and is primarily being practiced by the new universities in India, the new private universities, which are free of government influence, and also have the ability to do things. And this university, BMU, is one of them that is doing liberal education. And I've been visiting a number of such universities in India. That's the main reason for my trip. I'm an advisor to BITS, the new BITS Design School in Mumbai. It's just started. It's about 6 weeks old right now. And they are going to be teaching this way. I'm an advisor to Flame University, which is in Pune. No, it isn't. Yes, it is. It's in Pune. And also I'm working I've come here, and I'm going tomorrow to the Design Village, which is in Noida, which is also doing this. And in these cases, each university thinks it's alone, and it isn't understood by parents, it isn't understood by business. So one discussion we've been having is, let's start a collaboration of all the universities teaching like this so they can support one another. And ideally, we can publicize it so people understand the value, and that more importantly, business understands the value and believes that having people who are not specialists might actually be better for business. Not always, but in many instances. And then maybe if we do that, maybe other universities will be jealous and join us. So maybe the IIIT can join us, and the IITs of the world, and even the MITs of the world. Back, I'm still searching for hands, hurrah, hurrah. So whoever has the microphone, go find them.
Professor Norman, whatever you just stated intrigued me very much. What kind of a system would you have in a university if given an opportunity you start your own university and you are given all the resources to adopt any system that you liked? So what would your ideal university be like? You just said generalists, we need more generalists.
Here's what I would like to do. At the moment, students have to choose a major, but they don't really know what the majors are. They think they do, but if you want to major in mechanical engineering, it's because you want to build things often. But if you actually become a mechanical engineer, you'll discover, oh, it's about fluid dynamics and other such sort of issues. And actually, if you want to be an engineer to build things, but engineering is really applied mathematics. I'm not saying that's bad, I'm just saying that there's a misunderstanding. People think design is a sort of art, but it isn't. People misunderstand most disciplines. It's not a surprise because unless you've experienced it at the university level, you don't know what is really going on. So the first thing I would try to do is do a general education of what goes on in the university. But it has to be done in a way that's really fascinating and interesting. So it again will be done by projects. And why am I against STEM education? Science, technology, engineering, mathematics, where is the people? And if you want to learn about people, how do you learn about people? Do you go to the psychology department? No, not really, because they study, they're filled with specialists. And you need a generalist to understand people. And you know where you find them? You find them in literature, and in drama, and in film, and in acting. Because they have to know enough to make their actions and their writings real. You believe them. And so I would try to cover the university and get people excited, but get excited not just by the disciplines, but by the combinations. And I would spend the first 2 years, maybe, even getting them used to this stuff. And then, in the later years, they have a choice. They can continue their broad education, or they could do specialized education. Because not everybody wants to do broad. And some people like me, I wanted to be a specialist when I started out. But years later, I realized I was more interested in other things, so I taught myself. So I learned about humanity, I learned about history, I learned ethics, I learned philosophy. And I did it by doing a lot of reading and by talking to my friends who were in those fields. So in order to learn, not only do you have to be motivated, you sort of need to learn it when you need it. And when I was at MIT, I was forced to take history and philosophy courses, and I hated them, and I learned nothing from them. because I wasn't ready. They were good people, good teachers, but I wasn't ready. So I want to make sure that people are ready, but another way of making them ready is showing them even early why this is useful and valuable for what they're doing today. So that's what I would do.
Thank you.
But the hardest part is going to be finding the teachers. But it can be done. Hands, looking for more hands. There's one in the far back, but yes?
I would suggest something. Dawn is going to be on campus today. After the event,
Can we give him a microphone?
Dawn is going to be our guest on the campus today, this evening. So I would encourage those of them who want to have a conversation with him to meet him after this function, because we also have a music concert, and it'll be nice if we can finish this function and then we have a high tea there, I assume. And after that, it'll be good if you might want to sort of talk to Dawn and have a conversation if possible. We can even have it back here, and we can continue with this if that's okay. If that's okay with you.
I would really love Mr. Karnik to join me, because
much as we would
now,
have
you may
loved-
have a busy schedule, you have to leave, but I so much enjoyed your talk that you ruined my talk, because I decided I couldn't give my talk.
Is that okay?
Thank you, Professor Norman, for those insightful words. Thank you so much, Dr. Karnik, to touch base on the role of teachers and teaching, critical analysis, and different interventions to solve a problem. Now I request VC Sir, Swati Ma'am, and Shadan to please felicitate Professor Norman and Dr. Kiran Karnik.
Yeah, we can do that.
Thank you to Shadar for organizing this.
To conclude this inspiring day, we have a delightful treat for you all. Please stay seated as we welcome the talented group Charyar. They know for their captivating performances. We are pleased to introduce our celebrities of the evening, Mr. Madan Gopalji, Deepak Castellino, Amjad Khan, and Preetam Ghoshal. Mr. Madan Gopalji is an Indian composer, singer, lyricist, actor, editor. He is currently a senior fellow at Nehru Memorial Museum and Library, New Delhi, while on leave from Satyavati College, where he taught English literature. Madan Gopalji is an esteemed name in realm of Sufi and folk music, will be performing. A huge round of applause for Chayatri.
Dr. Madan Gopal Singh is a professor of English, retired from, at the moment, retired from University of Delhi, and he has really woven together his erudition, his scholarly interest in semiotics and literature, with his interest in music, particularly with the Sufi music, and have done interpretations and many renditions based on Kabir, based on Bulle Shah, Rumi, and many others. Yeah, I've always been fascinated not just by the music that he presents and he and his group present, but also by the scholarly understanding of the whole field. And I'm so happy that he accepted our invitation. He and his group accepted the invitation and are here. Thank you very much.
Friends, first of all, good evening. And this thing about me being a teacher of English literature is a bit misleading, because I remember the first class that I had to teach in Randers College. I went to a government school and I had a great difficulty in coming to terms with the language. And I don't think I have even now been able to sort of understand the language. The first day I had to teach an MA previous class, and I had to teach Middlemarch. And my students knew that this man with a huge turban on his head knows very little by way of the language. I thought I was a good student of literature, but today, I wish I could say the same, as a professor from San Diego. He said about his previous speaker, Mr. Karnik, that his speech has already been delivered. And it seems that our concert has also been already sort of done to death. And but I must sort of, in all humility, make one comment. Not that it's a question. At my ripe old age, I find myself sort of, in a troubled landscape. It's a landscape of troubled euphoria, if I may put it like that. I find myself sliding between secession and an unending fear of being erased. Where is the ordinary human being? What is going to happen to the ordinary human being with all his, her multiple sort of, errors and mistakes and the right to live? That's a very major question. What happens to the issues of mental health? I don't think the universities have ever, some of the universities that I've known, have ever addressed these questions in pursuit of excellence. And the number of students that I come across these days troubled with issues of mental health is really large. And we have to be concerned, deeply concerned. So I take you back to very conventional wisdom. Before I begin, let me also sort of underline the fact that these four people sitting here, here is Pandit Pritam Ghoshal, who comes from East India, from Bengal. And I don't want to say it like this, I don't want to state it like this, but he's a Hindu. Here is a man who comes from South India, though he was born and brought up here. He is a Christian. And there's a young man who's born in Delhi. He's a Muslim. And as Shakespeare said, in fact, Iago said in Othello, even with my turban on my head, I'm not what I am. So, Charyar, this is the name of the group, 4 friends. We go back to how the people started traveling from Central Asia, from China, from Turkey, converging in some stray inn on the delta of the sea and engaging in a dialogue in a language which, is only partially understood. All these Sufis and people who traveled, they were creating a middle of the road language. And there are no finished formula for that. I will surrender a part of my language. You will surrender a part of your language. We'll meet in the middle. We'll dialogue. We'll eat together. We'll go away. These were the universities. These were the traveling universities. Maktabe Ishq ka dastur nirala dekha. I was making a film on the classical musician Pandit Mallikarjun Mansoor. And when we went to Ustad Alauddin Khan's Munjal, the building is still there in Bombay. Or what was then Bombay is now Mumbai. And I came across this couplet in Urdu from a lesser known poet, Mir Tahir Ali Rizvi. Maktabe Ishq ka dastur nirala dekha. उसको छुट्टी ना मिली जिसको सबक याद हुआ. So we are in the maktab of Ishq today. I don't know if it makes any sense. It is overflowing everywhere. And there is no chutti from this. Maktab is the school of love. Maktab-e ishq ka dastur is custom. Nirala is wondrous, unique. The custom of the school of love was unique. He who learned the lesson could never leave. The maktab, this is the maktab. We used to sing, I remember hastily when I was in school, Guru Brahma, Guru Vishnu, Guru Deva Maheshwara, Guru Sakshat Param Brahma, Tasmaita Guru Shri Guru Vedma. In my school, I was learning Sanskrit, and my fellow students will make another one with Guru Rabia and Guru Laldar, then Guru, all women, incidentally, and I have not been able to figure out why, because औरतों को हमारे घर में गुरु मानने का जो रस्म नहीं थी। गुरु बाला सरस्वती, गुरु अख्तरी बाई, गुरु, I mean, '18th century verse from Hazrat Sultan Babu. Alif Allah chambe di booty, Murshad man vich lai hu. I start with Alif, the first letter. It's not a word yet. And I think of the Almighty. And in thinking of the Almighty, I think of that is no might, that is fragile, that is defenseless. That is the first lesson that my teacher taught me. Think of that is on the margins. He nurtured it the water of fullness and void. Nafias baat da pani milya, har rage har jai hu. It started sort of permeating my being. Andar booty mushk machaya. Inside its fragrance begins to overwhelm me. Ja pullanapur aihu, when it blossomed into a full plant. Jeeve Murshad Kamal Sai. May my Murshad, my teacher, live long. He was wise, but he was also Kamil. Kamil is wise. In Punjabi, there is a distortion of Kamil which is known as Kamla. A man with a crack in his head. The teacher has to have a crack in the head. There are no perfect teachers. Jeeve Murshad Kamal Sai. Sai is not the master. Sai is a shadow that travels with you, even when the body is gone. अब हम कहाँ नौकरियां ढूंढते फिरेंगे सर? Murshad man vich lai. The entire discourse is caught between a letter which is not yet a word and a sound which is no meaning. In between is this meaning-making effort. I have to apologize, I'm heavily medicated today. Too many antibiotics. the first Sri of Hazrat Sultan Babu. And the interesting thing about Hazrat Sultan Babu is that when he wanted to become a poet, he went to the Ustad, the Guru, and he said, well, he said, I want to have my mother as my teacher. And this gentleman announced that women were not supposed to be teachers. And so he decided to sort of do his work without a teacher. My own training as a student of history and linguistics and of literature. Some of the finest teachers that I learned from were Romila Thapar, Veena Das, and a list of a whole host of others. And they were all excellent. My finest teachers were all women, actually. I mean, there is no other way to explain this. When I'm saying this, there is another counter. Guru Nanak, this is the mool mantra of Guru Nanak. Diva mera ek naam. The length of my reflection is focused on one thing. Diva mera ek naam. Dukh vich paya tel. If it disengages from the very misery and agony and pain of the people, my reflection is useless. This is what Guru Nanak said. Diva mera ek naam, dukh vich paya tel. Bulle Shah, many years later, is saying the same thing. Bulle Shah ek sauda kita, pita zehar pyala pita. He's invoking Socrates. Bulla Shah, that is my Murshid, my teacher, entered into a transaction. And he drank of the hemlock. Pita zehar pyala pita. Na kuch laha na tota lita. He had no stakes. He could have easily saved his life. Sirte gand dukhandi chai. And he carried this, huge burden of people's or knowledge, pain. That is where we come from. No artificial intelligence can take us away from that. Okay. Sorry.
Okay, we'd like you to sing the next song with us. Just one word, and the word is Anand. You know exactly where the word comes in. Don't sing it all the time.
Yeah.
But we hope you enjoy it.
Kabir. On the banks of the river Hudson in New York. In the same place where this famous festival was held in 1969. What's the name of the festival? Do you know? Woodstock.
Now sing with us. Now. Nice.
It should reach Gurgaon at least.
One more time. Louder.
Anand, 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 Sing bliss, my friends. The day has dawned and the night is gone. The spring is come and the fruit is filled with nectar. But there is no guarantee that you will partake of that fruit. Somebody else will come. That's what the universities are. Beaming at koi santa sohare. And his next is Kahat Kabir Goond ki Sena. Says Kabir that you are the army of resonance. Goond ki Sena. You are the army of resonance. Sadguru Shabd Parakh kar lena. Even the word of the true one, you have to put to scrutiny before accepting. That's what the universities are.
Thank you.
The next number is about the traveling thread from Central Asia, from China, from Turkey that I mentioned, and how it enters India. And much later, how it enters the being of John Lennon somewhere far away. So we travel from the 13th century Rumi, and we then come back to my Urdu translation of Imagine, and then we enter the actual text in English, and from there we go back to Kabir to see how the thread could be traced back to Kabir. Then we come to Bulle Shah in the same zone. I'm sorry, I have a This is also about the teacher. When he was separated from his teacher, Shams Tabriz, and this is from this Masnavi that he wrote on Shams Tabriz. Chitadbire Musalmanan ki man khudra namidanam, na tarsa na Yahudiyam, na gabram na Musalmanam. Oh, my Muslim friend, you have been able to figure out who you are, but I've tried and tried. I have not been able to know who I am. Nas Hindam, Nas Chinam, Nas Bulgaro Saksinam. I'm not from India. I'm not from China. I'm not from Bulgaria. I'm not from Saxinia. Naz mulke Iraqiyam. I'm not from this country called Iraq. Naz khake Khurasanam. Nor am I from the dust of Khurasan. Naz dunya. Naz rukhba. I'm not from this world and I'm not from that world. Naz Adam, Naz Habba. Not a man, not a woman. Naz Firdaus Rizwan. Nor am I from the heaven, nor am I the gatekeeper to heaven. So who am I? The Sufis will never tell you who they are. They'll tell you who they are not. And it says, Makanam la makam bharsha. Without a home am I. Makanam ba na la makam bharsha. Nishanam bi nisha bharsha. And my traces have been obliterated. Natan Parshat, Najah Parshat. I have no idea of my body and my soul. Ki man as jane jananam. I am the soul of my soul. That's what I seek. I was traveling in Iran in the company of Sharan Naziri, my friend, one of the legendary Sufi singers. Tadbir Musalman Yaman Khudra Not a Christian, not a Jew. Na Gabram na Musalman. Not a Zoroastrian, not a Muslim. Nayos Hindam, Nayos Chinam. Nayos Bulgar Saksinam. Nayos Mulqairaqiyam. Nayas Khake Khurasan. Nayas Dunya. Nayas Rukhba. Nayas Jannat. Nayas Dozakh. Nayas Adam. Nayas Hawa. Nayas Firdaus Rizwan. Imagine there's no country. It is hard to do. Nothing to kill or die for. And no religion too. Imagine all the people living life in peace. You may say that I'm a dreamer, but I'm not the only one. I hope someday you will join us, and the world will live as one. Imagine there is no heaven, na asjannat na dozakh. Kabir. ना हम नर्क लोक को जाते, ना हम स्वर्ग सिधारे हो। हमने The dancing numbers. But before we do that, I believe Shyamji is getting ready to dance, is it? I just want to underline one small thing, because this traveling thread is the most fascinating. In the year 1872, are there any Bengalis here? Oh, 1, 2, 3, quite a few. So in the year 1872-73, the young boy Rabindranath Tagore, he was 11 years old at that time, he with his dad, with his father, Rabindranath Tagore, had travelled all the way to Punjab. And initially they hired a lodge in Dalhousie, which was then part of Punjab, and thereafter they shifted to Amritsar, and they stayed on the civil lines for about 6 months. And they used to go to the Golden Temple, the precincts. They'll sit there in the precincts and they listen to Gurbani. And the young boy became completely fascinated by Guru Nanak Dev's Arti. And at the age of 14, he translated the Arti into Bangla. Do we have some time? About 20 minutes? Yeah. About 20 minutes?
20 minutes.
Okay. I just give you a little demo. What it did to Rabindranath Tagore. The Arti is Gaganamai Thal Ravichanda Deepak Panay Tarika Mandal Jagmoti Dhoop Malayan Lav Pavana Chavarao Kare Sagal Ban Rai Phulant Jyoti. This is the ode to cosmos. Much later in his life, Tagore wrote a poem. Akash Gora Shurjo Tara Vishabhara Tahare Mazkhan Ami Pechi Ami Pechi Morsa Vishnoe Tai Jage Jagimara My Bangla pronunciation is a bit sort of, rusted. Although I did one film in Bangladesh way back in Bangla. I wrote that film. Yeah, I just sing 2 lines of Guru Nanak's Arti. I'm not going to do, because I have to make you dance after that. गगन में थोर चंद्र दीपक also is because he started singing this arti in Orissa outside the temple of Puri in the company of his Muslim friend Mardana. He was asked by the priest to go inside, and since his friend was not allowed to go in, he stood outside and he composed an arti to the cosmos right there. And it must be remembered that in the company of his Muslim friend Mardana, he traveled for 25 years on foot. Everywhere, from Tibet to Central Asia to down south. So there is a huge lesson to be learned there, dialoguing with people, creating possibilities. The name of the university actually is the creation of new possibilities, which are compassionate, which are inclusive, which also celebrate the ordinariness and the creativity under our skin. Now we come to the dancing mode. I don't know how many Punjabis are always willing to dance, but I do believe that others are no less. Story?
Some of you may have seen a film many years ago which had Shah Rukh Khan and Malaika dancing on a train. What song was that? Very good. What was the film? Very good. Now that you know so much, we won't do that song. We won't do that song.
We're doing a song that was not written by Gulzar Sahib, which was not composed by A. Rahman, and was not sung by Sukhwinder, and was never used in Dil Se. But we are singing it from Dil Se. You must remember three things. What is inclusion? We begin with the postface. And this is very interesting because Hegel says that postface is impossible. Pretext is impossible. Because the pretext is written only after the text has been read. So actually the pretext is the posttext. So when we come to the beginning, we adduce another poem which is not related to the poem that we are going to sing. We sing the first refrain, then we go into the stanza. We sing the first line and we forget the rest. We move into another poem. And we create a loop and then we come back to the stanza. This is what Sufism is all about, structurally. Why? I can move out of one language and go into another. I can move out of one religion into another and come back. This is what is going to happen here. These are the last two songs we are going to do. भूल गई नमाज पुलिया रोजा दो गाना मुतरब सुखड़ा दान तराना मत कैसी पिलावर कला तेरे में इश्क नचाइया कर थैया थैया तेरे इश्क नचाइया कर थैया थैया होली पे तभी काम मेहमान कहिया इश्क नचाइया कर थैया थैया भैया 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 with iridescence, a streak of pink stays in the sky. Babule Shah is critiquing the repressive state. डूब गया वे सूरज मार गई या लाली, just a little streak. Of the same word or the same phrase is essential to Sufism. It is known as the Quran. This is where they get up. This is where first line of the center, and we move out of the center. We move out of the language from Punjabi into Hindi, from Islam into Hinduism.
रंग है दीवाना, रंग है मेरे महबूब के घर रंग है, रंग 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 सब सखियां जो मोरी में देखो हसीन अब के बहार चुनर मोरी नंगी जंग मुतरे नमरिया सारी ये नम नमी ओही जिस सिखी होवे मना भी तेरे सजदे कर मौला तेरे सजदे कर मौला तेरे सजदे कर मौला And here he cites an ayat from the Holy Quran in Arabic. So no dancing here. Alastu bi rabbikum. Before giving flesh to the souls, God Almighty asked this question: who am I? Pritam bole. The flesh is implicit in the question, and this is how the souls answer this question. सब सखियों